Since losing a franchise player and many others to retirement, the San Antonio Spurs rebuild has been perfect. Or has it?
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement.
What is up, San Antonio Spurs fans, NBA fans? Welcome to TSR Sports. My goodness, the San Antonio Spurs sure are an exciting team right now, playing fantastic team basketball, winning a lot of games that they shouldn't be. But to get there, we had to put the right pieces in place, and there's been a lot that's happened with the San Antonio Spurs roster over the last 5 years. And thinking about this, I wanted to do a video on where we were, kind of how we got there, kind of revisit some of our recent trades, our draft picks, our draft capital in the future, and kind of just give an overall grade on this rebuild that the Spurs have been doing. While I'm doing so, drop a comment down below. Anything that you've liked over the last few years that the Spurs have did, anything that stands out that you really didn't like, hit that thumbs up to support a fellow Spurs fan, and subscribe for more Spurs content. Let's get into the video. Man, that was a damn good team behind us, wasn't it? I can't believe they only had one championship. That being said, the Spurs franchise really started to change in 2016 to 2018. Tim Duncan retired in 2016. Manu Ginobili retired in 2018. Tony Parker's last season with the Spurs was 2018. And then on July 8th, 2018, Kawhi Leonard was traded to the Toronto Raptors, really changing just everything we had been accustomed to with the franchise. Now, we had some draft picks in this time frame. I'm going to talk about them right now. DeJounte Murray, Derek White, and Lonnie Walker, respectively, from left to right. And these players, when they were drafted, they were not drafted to rebuild the franchise. They were maybe to reload. They were all late picks to fill the roster, maybe be a starter someday, which, to their credit, DeJounte Murray became a starter and an all-star. Derek White became a starter, and Lonnie Walker was a spot starter. However, none of these players are on the team anymore. They are playing well in their respective current teams, doing very well, but they eventually became trade capital. So this is where we kind of get to more of the modern Spurs, in my opinion, and the rebuild that's really taken place since 2019. Even though the Spurs tried to stay competitive and were with players like DeJounte Murray, DeMar DeRozan, LaMarcus Aldridge, Rudy Gay, Patty Mills, so forth and so on. But I think the rebuild kind of started right around 2019, and it started with this draft right here. From left to right, Keldon Johnson, Quindary Witherspoon, and Luka Samanic. Luka Samanic, the one directly above me, is no longer with the San Antonio Spurs, and he could be considered pretty much a bust. He was drafted 19th overall in the first round and just never quite panned out, only spent 2 years with the Spurs. Quindary Witherspoon, the man in the middle, he is an NBA champion via the Golden State Warriors, played 2 years with us, and probably his most memorable thing he did is he fouled out in a game while only playing 10 minutes and earned the name Garbage Time Q. But you are an NBA champion, so props to you. That being said, though, the man on the far left of your screen is Keldon Johnson, and he is now a starter for the San Antonio Spurs and actually has been a starter for the last 3 seasons and really has blossomed every year in the league. And it looks like we have the makings of a potential star or maybe even a superstar in the works. Love his game, and with this draft, I would give this an A- overall. This is, I think, a pretty good draft for us. I mean, if Luka Samanic worked out, it would be a fantastic draft. But the fact that we have one starter and a guy that could be an all-star one day, maybe sooner than later, and very likable on top of that, give this an A-, a great draft. That being said, speaking of great drafts, next year I think the Spurs, while we were drafting guards, and who knew at the time of this video, the Spurs actually need guards right now, as we were drafting a lot of guards. I didn't mention the previous picture, but the picture with DeJounte Murray, Derek White, and Lonnie Walker, all guards, just for the record. But we drafted more guards, or a wing and a guard, if you will. That is Devin Vassell on the far left, and Trey Jones directly above me. And San Antonio Spurs fans, they're both starters for our Spurs right now. Now, while for me, the jury's still kind of out with Trey Jones and whether he can be our starting point guard for the future and moving on, Devin Vassell is showing us in his third year that he has definitely got the makings of a potential star himself like Keldon Johnson, showing us that he can be a 3-level scorer, creating his own shots, getting to the rim. The sky's the limit, I think, for Devin Vassell as well. Just having a little knee injury right now, so hopefully that's nothing that lasts the season. That being said, I think this was a great draft for the San Antonio Spurs. This is an A+. At the time of the draft, I was kind of, I was like, all right, Devin Vassell, I've heard of him, that's good. Didn't know Luka Samanic was when we drafted him, but I was familiar with Devin Vassell, and I think this ended up being probably one of our best drafts in the last few years. So, this one didn't quite work out. Directly above me is Joshua Primo. You're probably familiar with him right now as he's been in the news a lot. And over to the far left is Joe Wieskamp. Joe Wieskamp was our second-round pick, no longer with the team. Only lasted 1 year. Even though he was a second-round pick, I like to see players at least get 2 years with the team. but the Spurs were done with him a lot quicker than I expected. And then Joshua Primo showed us some moments last year, but he was an 18-year-old rookie, and then of course he's no longer with the team. He was waived because of stuff off the court, maybe some legal issues, whatever. And I think I got to grade this draft an F. Even though Primo's a bust because of legal issues, he's still a bust. I was never a fan of taking him when we did in the first round, 12th overall. However, if he had panned out and became a starter or all-star with us, then I would have been ecstatic about that. But obviously, he didn't. He's no longer with the team. Just for the record, if you guys haven't been keeping tabs, no team claimed him off waivers. Everybody is staying away. So there's that. But then we get to this year's draft. And some folks are a little skeptical on the Jeremy Sohan pick. Maybe we should have went with the center. But overall, this draft is working out for us. Jeremy Sohan is already a starter for the San Antonio Spurs and has showed us flashes left and right of his defensive capabilities, but also has shown us that he can score and be our first legit lob threat in like forever. The other two gentlemen, number 22, Malachi Branham, has had very limited action, so the jury's out on him, but I think possibly he could be a valuable scorer for us off the bench. And then right above me, unfortunately, Blake Wesley is out for 6 to 8 weeks right now with a torn MCL, but in very limited action, he has shown us that he could also potentially be a starting point guard for this team someday. Obviously, you got to stay healthy. You got to stay on the court to be able to perform for your respective team. So overall, I would give this draft right now, I give it an A. I don't think I graded it high originally, but this draft is looking like it was very good for us and showing that you can build a team from the draft. While we didn't do so much so with the previous or that first pick I showed of DeJounte Murray, Lonnie Walker, Derek White, things didn't quite come together there. So far, at the time of this video, the last 4 years draft picks are coming together where we have 4 starters from the draft. 4 starters from the draft, and most of them are kind of late-ish to late lottery picks to a late first-round pick with Keldon Johnson. And it should be noted, another starter on the team was part of the DeMar DeRozan, Kawhi Leonard trade, and Jakob Poeltl is our current starting center. So everybody that's in the starting lineup was either a draft pick or part of one of the trades we made. So in rebuilding this roster, I think the Spurs have done a good job. That being said, we should also talk about the incredible amount of draft capital the Spurs have from trading away some of the players we talked about earlier. Now, this is a little confusing to read here in places, so bear with me. But next year, we have our own first-round pick. We have the Hornets' first-round pick, which is top 16 protected. So if they finish 17th or worse, we'll get their pick. That is from the DeJounte Murray trade. Then I didn't even know about this, Spurs fans. We have the second-round pick from the Pacers, but it's top 55 protected. I don't think we're going to have that pick, but we may very well have 2 first-round picks next season. Going to the 2024 draft, we have our own 2 picks plus the Lakers pick from, I don't remember the Kennedy Chandler deal. As we move forward here, you're going to start to see a lot more draft capital starting with 2025. We have our own first-round pick. We have the Hawks' first-round pick. We have the Bulls' first-round pick, which is protected up to top 10. So if the Bulls finish 11th or worse in the draft standings, if you will, not 11th or worse in the league, but 11th or worse in the draft standings, we have their pick, plus 2 second-round picks. So the Spurs could end up having 5 picks in the 2025 NBA draft. This is a team that's already loaded with young talent that's performing well. May be able to load up even more in a couple years. Moving forward to 2026, we also have 4 picks. We have the Spurs. The Hawks swap. Hawks receive less favorable Pacers Heat selections. That's for the set. I don't know what's happened on that second round with the Pacers Heat. Multiple things. We have our 2 picks, and then the Hawks swap pick. I can't remember if we have their pick or I think it's a pick. And then 2027, another first-round pick from the DeJounte Murray trade. So you kind of get the gist of this. The reason I'm going over this is we have a lot of draft capital in the future to go with a lot of the young draft pick or young players on the team that we have now. I'm about to sneeze, so it's distracting me. I hope I don't. So that being said, wrapping things up, talking about the team with this rebuild, I love a lot of the draft picks. Yeah, there have been some misses, some huge misses. Obviously, Luka Samanic comes to mind. Joshua Primo comes to mind. But overall, the draft since 2019 to present, I think the Spurs have done an extremely good job of putting this roster together. That being said, have they made some mistakes besides the draft? Yes, absolutely. I think they tried to stay competitive a little longer than they should. I get why they tried to win LaMarcus Aldridge and DeMar DeRozan right after the Kawhi Leonard trade, but maybe we should have blown that up a year earlier. DeRozan said it was 3 years. If there was a taker, maybe we should have moved on from him 1 year earlier and maybe have gotten a little more from him. Have the Spurs given up on players a little too soon? Lonnie Walker, a lot of folks wish that Lonnie was still with the team. I see he's kind of doing the same thing that he was doing with the Spurs with LA right now. So I'm kind of on the fence on Lonnie Walker, but a player like, let's say, Jacques Landale, who the Spurs signed last year, he played only one season, and now he's flourishing right now with the Phoenix Suns, playing 17, 18 minutes a game. I think he's averaging like 10 and 5. And we only gave him 1 year. And instead of being a third center on the roster, which I would prefer, we have Gorgie Zhang with no disrespect to Gorgie Zhang, but I'd rather have a young guy where the jury's still out and maybe there's something there we haven't unlocked yet than the guy that's past 30 and you already know for sure what you have with him. Obviously, this is draft mistakes which I already addressed, but overall, this hasn't been the perfect rebuild. A lot of players have come and gone, but just I think Spurs fans, based on the circumstances, I'm going to give the team an A minus on this rebuild. Losing a franchise player like Kawhi Leonard, and say what you will about number two. You might be a fan, you might absolutely hate him because of the way he left. Maybe you're somewhere in between. Losing a player like that was one of the top 10 players in the league at the time of the trade, maybe top five. I don't remember the rest of the players in the league at that time. A guy that was a legit two-way player, something that has brought us tons of playoff success or regular season success before. A two-way player like David Robinson, a two-way player like Tim Duncan. And the torch was passed from Robinson to Duncan, from Duncan to Leonard, and now Leonard's suddenly off the team. And you get DeMar DeRozan, who is a very good player, not to take anything away from DeMar, but prime DeMar versus prime Kawhi Leonard, it's not quite the same thing. And I think that really knocked us off the rails, if you will. Not to mention all those classic great Spurs retiring. It really set the franchise back. And they were scrambling, I think, for a few years, trying to stay competitive, trying to put a roster together. And in the end, I think we're headed in the right direction. I hope that looking back on this video a year from now, we're not looking back like, yeah, Keldon didn't pan out, or man, he was way too high in Devin Vassell. Trey Jones is not a starting point guard. Man, Jeremy Sohan's terrible. Hopefully none of that happens. Hopefully we look back and go, man, there was a rough spot with our Spurs. Yeah, maybe they were trying to win, trying to win when they, always trying to win, but maybe they were trying to grasp onto something that wasn't there anymore, and they should have just tore it down a season earlier. I like the Utah Jazz realized we're not winning with Rudy Gobert, we're not winning with Donovan Mitchell. They just said the heck with it and started over. Of course, they're winning now, which doesn't make any sense. And overall, I'm pretty happy with the rebuild. I hope the Spurs continue to develop young talent. Hopefully, we continue to see Kelvin Johnson, Devin Vassell, and others grow. And it's a very exciting time to watch the Spurs. And right now, they are doing what we love to see. They are playing Spursy team basketball. And I love it. And I hope this continues throughout the season. And they keep getting better and better. And who knows, maybe become a playoff contender much quicker than anybody anticipated. I want to thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, and as always, go Spurs, go!